Hey everyone.
Such a catchy theme song. I love it.
Okay.
Welcome back to episode 15. 15?
Yeah, we are 15 in.
We're in our mid-teens. Wow. Exciting.
Quite exciting.
Very.
Well, we have a few things to discuss today. Biggest one being Granlund and Ceci to the Stars in exchange for a first and a conditional fourth. The condition being if the Stars make it to the Cup final, it will turn into a third round pick.
Mm-hmm. And if not, it will be the fourth round pick from the Winnipeg Jets.
So a pretty late fourth at that.
Yeah. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be around the ranking of 25th pick. That's my guess. If
Depends when the Jets go out, you know.
Yeah.
It's ranked pretty high.
I think it's going to be a huge factor, obviously, in Hellbuck, whether or not he could steal the series or not. Kyle Connor needs to keep up his power play prowess. And Scheifele needs to maybe not dump Jake Evans again behind the net.
Yeah. That might help.
Yeah. They got to play it smart, but they have a very good team with a goalie who's playing at an all-time high right now.
Going to Dallas, though. So they get Granlund and Ceci. The Sharks are rebuilding, so, they get a first-round pick, and they get another mid-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So Ceci is essentially a depth defenseman.
Yeah, he's a seventh at best.
Yeah, so a little bit of depth on their blue line doesn't hurt. Granlund's having a career year, or I think career year, pretty close. He's definitely doing good on the Sharks, or he was doing good on the Sharks. Absolutely lighting it up.
From Oulu, Finland. He's not your biggest player at 185 and 5'10", but he's effective. He's currently sitting at 46 points in 53 games. So
that's pretty good on a very bad Sharks team.
He's definitely having a great year so far. Like he's only 15 points shy of his 2024, which was his best season so far at 60 points and 69. Nice. And then before that, 41 with Pittsburgh and 79 and 36 with the Predators and 58. So he's having a fantastic season right now. And for what he's been, he's having a great season. And what's his contract like? Do you know?
He's a UFA after this year.
He's a UFA.
So he signed $5 million, and then he's done. Stars could choose to re-sign him. It's always a possibility. I heard some whispers of that. They're looking at it.
I mean, I don't think he's going back to San Jose right now.
I don't think anyone's going to San Jose.
Like Hoffman did.
Hoffman didn't have anywhere else to go. No one wanted him.
He was offloaded to them.
No one wanted his wife.
Oh boy, too much
fun. So he's a good pickup. Obviously, going to help the Stars with some offense. Not that they really need it, but looking at their lines, they're pretty damn good. You can slot Granlund on the wing if you want. You can put him at center. Their center depth is already really good. Before this trade, Hintz, Duchesne, Wyatt Johnson, Sam Steele.
Yeah, I can't see, unless something drastically happens where one of those guys gets injured, I can't see Granlund moving to center. He's a speedy winger. He's a speedy winger who's going to provide a lot of depth scoring for Dallas, and it's honestly a great pickup. He can play on the penalty kill. He's on there. He's on San Jose's power play now. Is that because they just haven't had the tools to put together a strong power play?
Partially.
Will we see him on the power play in Dallas, given the weapons that they have there? I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't put it past it. It it's a
Yeah.
very good pickup, very strong
I
pickup.
mean, it helps the Stars because they've lost Sege. He could come back for playoffs, but that's no guarantee. He had surgery in December, and he'll be out 4 to 6 months. And it was at the beginning of December, so December, January, February, March. Now he could come back, but that's no guarantee.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a pretty big
Basically,
loss.
I agree. I don't think he's going to slot into any of those center spots. Hintz is a elite center. Duchesne's a very good second line center. Johnson is having a down year, but he could pop up and do better. But he's still a good third line center and Steele's a good fourth. And there's no point in putting Granlund all the way down on the fourth line.
Mm-hmm.
According to Daily Faceoff, he is slotted on the second line as of right now, but that could, of course, change.
Of course,
But the way he's scoring, he'd be outscoring Evgeny Dadonov. I don't know what kind of season Ben's having, but um,
Jordy Ben. I'm sorry, Jamie Ben. Jordy Ben.
yes.
Brain fart. Um, yeah, no, it. Yeah, he's. What can you say? He's a strong pickup. They've just acquired their third point scorer on their team so far this season. Like that's where he would slot in if he had all those points with Dallas.
Yeah,
And
so good top six addition.
mm-hmm. Now Rupe Hintz Jamie Ben's not having a bad season. It's not what he was obviously because he's an aging vet, but he's still got 32 points in 52 games as of the time of this recording, and he's still putting in goal every 3 games, which is not that's not a bad pace.
That's not bad. And he has that veteran leadership. So,
He's a power forward. He's an aging vet. He's 35 years old, but he's still got that physicality.
So all in all, it's a good pickup. If you haven't noticed, the Stars are very good at drafting. If you look at some of their draft picks, like Stan Coben, Johnson, they both were selected later on, not like late round picks or anything, but later on in the first round. Stan Coben may even be a second rounder. And obviously, there are a couple pretty elite players.
Yeah, they have a lot of stars on that team.
One day we'll get through without some pun.
No,
A day's not today.
no, they have excellent scouting. Clearly, like they're doing a fantastic
But
job.
sorry, what this tells me is normally they hold on to their first round pick. They have quite a bit. But if they're trading that first round, maybe they're looking at the draft and thinking it's not quite as strong and they might not be able to grab a good quality player that has a high chance of making the NHL late in the first round.
Or they're just going for broke. I think that they're going all in. I don't think they're done right now. This is a pretty significant pieces that they're trading away, especially in that first round pick. But I don't think they're going to be. I don't think they're done. And Sagan coming back will be a huge boost up front that they don't need because they're putting pucks in the back of the net. But yeah, no, Granlund's going to be a great addition on their wing, and he had some extra speed to an already gritty team. Like they got size, they got a lot of ability, and they'll beat you in many different ways. They have strong defense and one of the best goaltenders in the league.
I don't think they're going to add anyone else unless Heiskanen's going to be out until the playoffs. Because with
That's my game.
him and Niels Lundqvist on IR, they have $5 million cap space.
That's pretty significant considering a lot of teams will take on some extra cap for a draft pick or two.
Yeah, but if Heiskanen comes back before the end of the season, his contract's 8.45. Niels Lundqvist is 1.25, so that's not a huge deal. But um, honestly, they're kind of a little bit screwed. Cap works is a daily structure, so you're allowed to spend so much on salary each day, and they'll save money by Heiskanen being on IR and Lundqvist. But I don't believe they'd save enough without doing the math to bring him back off IR. But maybe having Sege on IR for so long will help them save enough. Because he's on long term. He's out, like I said.
Yeah. It
would just suck to have to wait till playoffs for Heiskanen to pop back.
Would it suck? Or
are they pulling Vegas? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's definitely been talked about behind the. I mean, they're not supposed to be, but it's definitely being chatted about behind closed doors. And I mean, we all saw the hit. We showed it in the previous episodes. It is ugly. Like the way his knee was torqued in there. I had an injury very similar to that playing football, and I tore my MCL. I was on crutches for 3 months, and I mean that was just high school football. We're talking about the NHL. It's you need your knees to be good, and it was ugly. He's out long term. It hurts. They lost their best defenseman essentially.
Oh, by far their best, not even close.
So, I think they can mitigate it. It's going to hurt, but I think they can mitigate that a little bit. Is that more Morsi cream?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's piercing.
Okay.
Yeah,
let's give our usual.
Michael Granlund, very strong pickup. Cody Ceci, in and out of the lineup nightly with Heiskanen out. He can't hit the broadside of the barn unless it's changed recently, but
yeah, Ceci, like we said, bottom pair defenseman, depth, a little bit of extra help. He might be playing higher than that. Maybe he can get back to some sort of decent form, but unlikely. So on Dallas' side, what sort of grade are you giving them for this?
Honestly, I like this trade a lot for them. Not so much the Ceci side, but I like that's a cap dump by San Jose to acquire more later, getting rid of the contract. But
I don't know if it'd be a cap dump. He was only 3.25, and they already had a shit ton of cap space. I mean, if they want to be a broker for deals,
that's what I mean. Like that, 3.25 is easily a third round pick in cap retention.
Keep in mind, actually, they don't have any retention spots left, so there'd be no reason to clear up cap unless it was to take on a bad contract.
Yeah, that too, and that's worth a lot as well. Like
it can be
a team that doesn't like a certain player, obviously stating the obvious here, but they don't like a certain player, ship them off to San Jose, give them a draft pick, take a really like a low end prospect off of them for the contract spot and save a whole bunch of cap space. Get a guy like Ryan O'Reilly or somebody who's going to come in, make an impact, acquire another depth forward or defenseman or goalie. I'm looking at you, Carolina, a goalie. Mm-hmm. I love Freddie.
They might stay pat.
But
anyway,
I all in all, this trade. I mean, the first is unusual for them to trade away, but I'm going to give it an A-.
Okay.
That's why, because the Granlund piece is. I think he can do a lot. I think he's going to do a lot for their wing, especially with Sagan out. That's a very strong pickup. Sagan comes back. You add him to your third line. That's deadly. Not a lot of teams can keep up with that.
Fair. I'm gonna go B plus here. So again, like I said, he'll be out until the conference final or cup final, whatever it happens to be, and it's good. They got a rental, a replacement for Sege. Ideally, they could have got better right shot D-man, but frankly, if you look on the market, there's not a lot of them available. So
Mhm.
Ceci was definitely not the worst option as far as right-hand defensemen are available and fit Dallas's price as well as cap
Yeah.
availability. So
No,
they'll have the firepower, with Granlund, and if Sagan comes back, great. Um, and their decor is decent, so B plus.
yeah, the CC thing, he's got a wicked hard shot. Got to hit the net. He's got to hit the net. But he's a big body who can eat up some, maybe in a pinch he can eat up some third pairing D time in the playoffs. Not ideal, but he's a big body who can dish out a few hits too. So that's huge in the playoffs. That's worth a little bit. If you can, games 1 and 2, a lot of times are just softening up your opponent for the long run. If you're not, unless you're gonna destroy them in 4 games sweep. Games one,
Yeah.
two is soften them up. Games 6 and 7 is win it. So
Okay.
that's where I think he's going to have an impact. Is games
Fair.
1, 2 if he does.
Okay, on
If
the flip
he does.
side, how are you grading the Sharks for this one? They get unprotected first, not that it's going to be super high, and a conditional fourth that could turn into a third if the Stars make the Cup final, which is a possibility.
I'm going to grade this one again, probably about an A minus. They got something of value for somebody who could have walked, who was probably going to walk at the end of the season anyway. They're not going to re-sign him. He's not going to go back. The Sharks obviously would love to have him back, but it's not going to happen. So, all in all, you dumped a couple of contract spots. You can take on a crummy contract. You dump some cap. You got a first, third, and possibly a third or a fourth, depending. And yeah,
Did
I'm
you
gonna
say
give it.
take on a crummy contract?
No, they dumped off a crummy contract. Like they can take on a
Okay, okay,
contract.
sorry.
That's what it opens
You're
it up
good.
for, as long as they use it. But yeah, especially for the San Jose Sharks who don't exactly make money, they're saving a few $1,000,000 on their payroll as well.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure financially they're sitting just fine. Um, I'll agree with you on this. I'll give them an A minus. So Granlund was most likely going to walk, and they were able to send Granlund and Ceci off in the same trade and
mhm.
get that first rounder back. That's good value. And the fourth's just a little bonus. It makes it pretty fair. And for a rebuilding team that already has stars to add another potential first rounder, it's good.
Yeah, it's
It's definitely a win-win trade, but San Jose definitely has a little bit of an edge.
they're in what their 9th or 10th year of their rebuild, still
No,
acquiring assets.
Jesus Christ, it hasn't been that long.
When did the Leafs trade for Patrick Marleau? Sorry, when did they pick up Patrick Marleau? But
Um,
no, they've been rebuilding for what seems like a while. They got some great young players, like Macklin Celebrini is going to be a phenomenal player. He already is. He's already putting up lots of points down there for, again, a crummy team. And so they have a couple pieces. They have a strong goaltender. They have no, sorry. They also picked up Forgiev, which is going to help them propel to another first overall pick, possibly. But they have some pieces. This is going to add to that, but they're going nowhere fast, especially considering I believe the last time I checked, their last 10 was 1-9. So
yeah, and to
yeah,
answer your question, it wasn't that long ago that San Jose was in the playoffs. I mean, I guess it's a little bit longer now, 2019. So
6 years ago.
I think that was the first year of them having Carlson. Don't quote me on that, but they had that series against Vegas where there was the 5 minute major and
Oh,
Joe Pavelski left the game.
the one that shouldn't.
And probably not, no. But it went, and they just pounded the goals in. Then Stone tied it up. I was watching it. I remember sitting there in just complete awe of this team coming back, and then it getting more exciting when Vegas tied it. Then overtime, and Carlson fed Barclay Goudreau, who drove the net and scored. And I wasn't a fan of either team, but I was cheering.
It was worth its weight in entertainment value for anybody who wasn't watching it. In the highlights the next morning, I'm surprised they weren't slow trying to load them, just from every hockey fan ever trying to watch that.
Yeah, that was just great. And 2019 was the year St. Louis won. But that's pretty much all I got to say on that.
I think this trade will put them in start to mitigate some of their injuries, but unless they get Heiskanen and Seguin back, I can't see them beating Edmonton, who's really like the other juggernaut.
No, but speaking of Heiskanen, let's talk a little bit about his injury. I know he's month to month. There hasn't been too many updates. He did have surgery, so it's just a waiting game, seeing how he progresses. And hopefully he's back soon because he is the cornerstone of that decor. No question about it. The impact of not having him is similar to not having Makar, maybe not quite on that level, but he is one hell of a defenseman.
And who he is to that team, yeah, I'd agree with that. And that pretty much wipes any chance of Team Finland having a chance at the Four Nations.
Yeah, they've gotten hit. It sucks for them, but they've really gotten hit.
At that level of play, they already had a thin blue line. They had high hopes for Hakanpää. That obviously didn't work out. Now they're out there again, their top defenseman. It's going to be a rough tournament in that sense. They're going to need some serious goaltending performances and goals from unlikely sources. It's going to be a tough one. Like this, I would imagine this almost solidifies their fourth spot.
Yeah, it sucks for Finland. It sucks for the Stars. But hopefully, like I said, he's back soon, and they'll be able to have their number one D-men. In the meantime, Thomas Harley is going to step up. He has some pretty damn good underlying numbers and just good stats overall. So we'll see how he can hold down that decor for now.
He's still fairly young, isn't he?
Oh yeah,
he's only a couple of years removed from the draft. Like he's budding early for if this is his projection to his prime, he's gonna be a hell of a great defenseman.
He's 23.
Yeah, and he's already playing outstanding.
You know,
on that.
He's drafted in 2019.
That's again, like I've said many times on this podcast, it's a tough time for development.
He's about 0.5 points per game. And career, he's a plus 56. He's only ever had one season where he's been a minus of his 4 seasons. Since then, it's just gotten better. You know, like -4, and then +5, +28, and he's already +27 in 50 games this year. So the guy clearly has an impact.
I mean, how much of that is because of, Jake Ottinger being one of the top goalies in the league, and also Dallas is just a strong team.
But they are, but to be on a strong team and play those minutes, you have to play strong. His time on ice indicates he's a top pair, so he has to be decent.
He is a very strong defenseman. Now, a little thing one little thing that concerns me about a knee injury requiring surgery for Heiskanen. Many times, a knee injury requiring surgery is due to a torn ACL. The
Well, hopefully
MCL,
that's not the case.
or if it's requiring surgery for an MCL, that's a very bad tear, like a pretty much complete tear. The meniscus might need some surgery as well, but if it's requiring surgery, it's a horrible tear in the MCL, or there's a tear in the ACL. The MCL can heal naturally, but the ACL requires surgery. That could mean that they're just hopeful. If that is the case, they're hopeful he makes it for the playoffs, but unlikely.
Well, he's
ACL
month to
injuries
month,
can be,
so they announced it, so it can't be terrible. It wouldn't be like hopeful for playoffs. If he's month to month, it could be 2 months, but it's not completely hopeless.
yeah. Like earlier this season, Austin Matthews was day to day with his injury, and then 3 days later, he was put on LTIR.
That's different, though. That's taking something that was lesser and making it more.
Yes,
They've already jumped to month.
Month to month could mean he could be back in 4 weeks. He could be back in 8 weeks. He could be back in 8 months. He might be back for season opener.
If he had truly season-ending injury, they would have gone out and gotten someone better than Cody Ceci with that extra cap space.
Maybe they just didn't have the trade lined up, and they realize what they need right now. But I'm not saying Ceci's that option, but I think they're hopeful. But if it is requiring surgery, it's not looking good for the ACL side. The way Mark Stone hit it could be all 3 ligaments. If that's the case, it's bad.
Hopefully not.
But
moving on from Dallas, though, good pickups, and hopefully Eskin's back. We're going to talk about Ryan Hartman and his face-off blunder that sent Stützle hard into the ice and opened up inside a little bit, just a little bit of blood coming down. And his suspension, he's been suspended 10 games for his actions.
10 games. That's a significant suspension, honestly. I don't know if I would use blunder for the right word. I'm trying to think of a better word for that, but blunder.
Well, it was not a hockey play.
No.
He chose to shove him down to the ice head first.
He grabbed him in the back of the head. He grabbed the back of his head and threw him down. It was short of a body slam.
Stützle, any player in that position is vulnerable, and no one's expecting to be thrown down. You're just trying to take a face off, and that was his solution to not winning the face off, or just being mad that they were losing at the time. I really don't know.
It doesn't matter. You can't do it.
Yeah. I see it very well deserved. I don't see any explanation on this play, any sequence that you could explain, like, oh, well, I was trying to do this. It's just not a hockey play.
No.
Like I said, Tammy was in a vulnerable position trying to win the draw, and he took his head and smashed it down. Simple as that.
The player safety on this one, I feel like this is a prime example of a prime opportunity to make an example of a player as well. I'm not saying it's the wrong call. I completely agree with it. And what I'm saying is I feel like this is a prime example where they can make an example of a player because it's like he's a good player. He's not a great player. He's a good player. And he's targeting a star in a vulnerable position with a shot to the head using the ice, which is one of the most dangerous issues about playing hockey is the ice. It's dangerous because there's no give in that. The boards have a little bit. The glass might even have a little bit because it can sway. There is no give in the ice. And you're causing a potential very dangerous hockey hit. Sorry, not hockey hit to the head using the ice as a weapon.
Yes,
They
and
got it right.
keep in mind this is also his 4th suspension in the past 2 seasons now. And I went and looked at his other suspensions. They weren't exactly hockey plays either. You know, he had a two-handed whack on, I forget what player, but November 2023. I remember that. And there was just a straight up interference call. But he's just, these aren't hockey plays that he's made, so I can see why they've cracked down. I honestly thought it was going to be less. I was thinking 7 or 8 games, but I'm fine with 10. And he will forfeit $487,000 out of his wallet for those 10 games. And that's American. Keep that in mind.
No, he plays for U.S. City, so. But.
Yes, but it's worth a little bit more. And yeah.
Because he was angry, he just forfeited $500,000, more or less.
Yeah, pretty much. Because he was angry.
Come on, man. What are you doing?
Honestly, I think you're right. They're trying to make an example of him to some extent, and I think they're just, trying to teach him too, like, this isn't acceptable, and really show him, this is your 4th suspension now. That's why you had an in-person hearing, and you can't do it.
So here's a question. If he didn't have the suspension history, what do you think he gets for this?
Less. I think he would get less. If it wasn't for the suspension history, my guess probably would have been 6.
6?
It's still a very dangerous play. You can't take someone's head and just throw them down to the ice, especially in a vulnerable position like that. Obviously, Stützle had his leg spread for the face-off, stick down, nothing to stop himself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a very dangerous non-hockey play, but I believe he would have got a little bit less if it wasn't for his history.
I can agree with that. He would have got less without the history. I still think he should still be around the 8-game mark. Because if you don't make an example of this is way beyond playoff style. Like, playoff is known for cheap shots and just trying to hurt your opponents and grind your opponents into the ground.
Yeah.
If you don't make an example of this in the regular season, it's just opening it up for the playoffs where they're just like, hey, as long as you don't kill anybody, unalive anybody, we're good with it. Just because, like, a play like this is a lot less in the playoffs. So it's like, if you're not making an example of it, like, it's a no play. You can't do it. It's violence. Like, hockey's a violent sport, but This is violence.
There's certain lines that you don't cross.
Yeah. Now, I'm not comparing it whatsoever to this, but it kind of has a similar kind of play to the Bertuzzi. Not in the sense where it was premeditated, where he was really going after him, but still, in that sort of sense, he still slammed his head into the ice, and the NHL is trying to make an example of those headshots. I'm not saying, again, it's not as bad as Bertuzzi, but it could have had that sort of implication. Now, like, you know what I mean?
I honestly don't remember the play you're talking about.
The one, like, the play where he took out Steve Moore, the sucker punch.
I can't picture it. Like, I know about it, but I can't picture it right now.
So in this one, Steve Moore was around center ice. He was skating away. Todd Bertuzzi came flying halfway up the ice and punched him in the back of the head, and then forcefully slammed him into the ice. It basically ended Steve Moore's career, and I think Bertuzzi, he had to pay, like, remunerations to Steve Moore in the sum of, I think it was close to like $10, $11 million or something like that.
Yeah, that
And
would have
like
been a lot back then.
there was a full full court case made out of it. Like there's a full lawsuit. You can read up about it. Won't go too far into it, but in that sense, it obviously doesn't have the same outcome because Stutz is okay as far as I know, but it's still taking an opponent in a vulnerable position and cheap shotting them into the ice. It's horrible. You have to make an example of this, and I think the league made the right call with 10. Without the
Okay.
history, maybe 8, but I still think that 8 to 10 is where it should have been anyway.
Okay. Fair enough.
So,
Well, Hartman can enjoy sitting, doing whatever you do when you're suspended, working out, being angry that you made a stupid choice.
reflect,
Yeah.
self-reflection. Maybe use some anger management
Speaking of people that
medication.
are out, Petrangelo, this is a little bit older news, but he is off Team Canada by his own choice.
Yes, he has come out and said he's trying to rest because he wants to rest his injuries so he can play for the playoffs. Essentially, it's a big piece. He's an aging vet, but he has what, 2 Stanley Cups, one with St. Louis, one with Vegas. He's been key parts of those on first, second pair, swapping whatever position. He was for sure the first pairing on St. Louis. He's a star defenseman who can put up some points and shut down the other teams and play a big physical game.
Yep.
It's a huge loss for Team Canada. And I don't blame him. I'm surprised we didn't see more of this, if I'm being completely honest, because it's hockey. Players are battling something every single day. That's what hockey is at this level.
Yes.
So I'm honestly surprised there wasn't more of this coming out.
So who are we going to replace him with? Who do you think is going to be the replacement right shot D? It
Right
doesn't
shot defenseman.
have to be a right shot necessarily, but
It's a nice to have, but
yeah.
I know your pick. I know you're gonna go to Noah Dobson or one of.
He could be a good option. I actually wasn't thinking Dobson, but
Bouchard. Was it Bouchard?
I wouldn't say no to Bouchard, no. But I like Aaron Ekblad.
That's who I was going to say. He's a very similar style player, fresh off that cup, as the captain of the Florida Panthers. Key part. I mean, he's been around the league since he was 18 years old.
Yep.
And yeah, I'd agree with that. I would 100% agree with Aaron Ekblad. Evan Bouchard, in a quick tournament like this, Evan Bouchard, he's too much for a defensive liability playing against star-studded teams. Noah Dobson is having. I wouldn't disagree with Noah Dobson being a runner-up for it, but
Dobson would be good too.
I'm honestly surprised that Ekblad wasn't on the original roster.
Another good option would be Mackenzie Weegar. He could play both sides, so in the event of an injury, have him play the left side. And he's similar style. He was partners with Ekblad at one point. Imagine having 2 top pairing right shot defensemen. There's Cole, something you don't see too often. But I think either of them would be good replacements. Who I don't want to see, and nothing really against Doughty, but I don't want to see Doughty. He'd simply be there because his name is Drew Doughty and he's played on Canada before.
Agreed.
Same with Letang. No disrespect to Letang, but he's in the back end of his career.
He's
Doesn't
in the
need to be
twilight.
there.
He's getting on that motorcycle to ride off into the sunset.
A couple other names I saw mentioned were Jacob Chicherin and Dougie Hamilton. they're both having good years. Chychrun, of course, is on the Caps that are rocking it in the East.
Yeah.
And
Dougie Hamilton, I feel like his entire career, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, I feel like his entire career he's been underrated. Like
a little bit.
he's a very, very steady defenseman. Speaking of Mackenzie Weegar, he just scored a power play goal against the Leafs. Oh, really? Come on, man.
You good? I
Are
just had a
you good?
stretch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
stretch.
Okay. A certain area. Okay.
I got a
Yeah.
funny story about Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Yeah. So
Do share.
when his draft year, Tyler Sangay went up to one of the management members of another team. I actually forget the management member, but he basically asked, who do you like in this draft? And he's like, well, I really like this kid, Dougie Hamilton.
This was
And
Dougie saying it.
no. This is
No,
from the management.
from the management.
Anyway, so at that point, Tyler was on Boston. And he goes back to his team, whatever, and then all of a sudden Boston is selecting Dougie Hamilton in the draft.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah, imagine just turning around like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have talked to Sege then.
That is a funny story. I like that a lot. And it's what makes it even funnier is that Sagan was traded because basically of his maturity, because he's too much of a party animal.
Yeah.
He was traded from Boston to Dallas.
Well, that sign in the crowd in Boston kind of says it all. Hey.
We're not going to repeat it on this.
I almost did.
We're not going to repeat it.
Well, two girls had a sign that said, hey, we blanked your blank in high school. Do you remember us?
They kissed.
Sure. I mean, we can go with that.
Yes. Anything beyond that is NSFY. Not safe for YouTube.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. You could just say NSFW, but moving on from that a little bit, I think any of the players that we mentioned would be fine replacements for Mr. Pietrangelo. Honestly, I wasn't all for Pietrangelo being on there, so if we throw an Aaron Ekblad, a Mackenzie Weegar, even Dougie Hamilton, they'd all be fine replacements. The decor would be solidified. The only thing that I want to happen is any of our goalies to get a very minor injury that keeps them out of the tournament for most of it, and then they're back to good form regular season, so we can get Logan Thompson in.
I agree.
Like, if they could just switch him out now, it'd be great.
Was he one of the players that said, "Hey, I have a vacation coming up, but I'm willing to cancel that to play"?
I'm sure he'd love to play. This is a guy that he's 27, and it feels like we're talking about a young guy just because he hasn't been around that long. He hasn't had the chance to play for Canada, I don't believe. Maybe in the World Juniors, but let me take a look on Elite Prospects here because I am now curious. It says NHL career has not been long, so
No.
he had a real long road to get there. He wasn't drafted until the 6th or 7th round of the WHL draft after being undrafted years before. And looking here, he did play for Canada in the World Juniors in 21-22 season. But outside of sorry?
What was the result of that one?
I forget. I think it was Canada.
21-22.
Yes, Canada won.
Fair. So
They won against Finland. Anyway, but
they're
keep in
finished.
mind, he was in like the ECHL and the AHL, and he was loaned in the AHL. He didn't have any actual contract. But Vegas signed him in the 2020-21 season. He played a game and then played for the Henderson Silver Knights. But he had an actual contract, and then the next season he got called up, 19 games in 914. Then Vegas again, 915. Last season in 908, he gets traded while he's signing autographs at the arena. And now he has a 924. I'll let you process that because you're going to laugh about that.
I want to sign it. I want to sign this. Please, just let me finish. No, please leave. You're not with us anymore. Seriously, man. I just want to sign this.
Imagine being like in a long line, finally getting up there, and someone walks up to him. Oh, you're traded, and you hear that, and then he just walks away.
Hey, man, finish up. Hey,
Oh,
man, finish
but
up.
I'm sure Vegas is kicking themselves for doing that, considering their mediocre goaltending, and they traded away a guy that has a 924.
Yeah. I mean, he's having the best season of his career. He's a huge part of why the Capitals are where they are. And not that they wouldn't be with a not so good, strong goaltender, but
It'd be
it
different.
adds to it immensely. He's got a 20, like right now in 20 games, he's 23-2-4.
That is just insane.
Considering what's the overall record for Washington right now? Like they're first in the East, and like they're breaking away with that one. But they have 20. He has 23 of their 34 wins.
That is so good.
The puck stops there is basically what we're saying. 924 save percentage, 215 goals against average, and yeah, he's got 29 games. He's got 23 wins in 29 games played. Like the guy's having a season and a half. He's already matched in 29 games. He's already matched his 22-23 season with Vegas in wins in almost 10 less games played.
That's impressive.
He's 2 behind last season with Vegas, and that's 14 more games played. And his save percentage is blowing it out of the water, and he's already matched his career high with shutouts. Now he's playing for a much bolstered Washington Capitals on the defensive side, but you'd think if they announced the rosters a month ago, he's a shoe-in for that first spot. He's playing every game of this tournament.
Right. Yeah, even I think they were stupid. I said it when they didn't take him. I didn't understand why. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, it's a huge missed opportunity.
But, we'll see what happens with the Four Nations. I'm excited for it, but it's not quite Olympic level. It's just going to be fun to watch the best on best again. That's all.
It's a glorified all-star tournament divided into nations.
Kind of better, honestly. It's going to be more competitive. Look at Kucherov last year and how lazy he was.
Yeah. So a lot of these players that were left off that feel like they should be there, like they're chomping at the bit saying, no, like I'm going if something happens. Like quite a few of them have said, I got a trip booked somewhere south and canceling it the second you give me the opportunity. Like
there's definitely a bit more buzz around it for the players, which will just translate into a better product for the NHL. So I'll give them a plus. It's a good thing. The only thing I'll complain about is the ticket price. The NHL kind of openly said that they were concerned with ticket sales and why they weren't selling all that much. Well, I was considering going to the game. I forget, it was Canada versus someone in Montreal, and
Mhm.
I'm about an hour and a half away, so it's doable, you know? And I looked at the price for nosebleeds, and it was 300 and some dollars per ticket. You know what that gets me in an Ottawa Senators game? That gets me glass. Or that gets me the comfy chair section where I get food brought to me.
or mid range, and you get to go to 2 games with your fiance
True. True, true, true.
and a jersey.
But Christ, they need to bring that cost down because my problem with that is, you know, average people, average hockey fans like you and I, we cannot afford to go and spend $300 on nosebleed tickets.
No,
You
no.
know, maybe if they were 100 level, maybe, but then I'd probably just go up to the mid-range or nosebleeds anyway. Um, but it's just ridiculous to expect anyone to pay that cost. It's going to be a bunch of rich, snobby people, and some of them aren't. They're not going to be hockey fans. It's going to be corporate. You know, oh, let's go to this corporate hockey game. You know, our company's bought us tickets, but
Yeah.
it's just what it is.
What you're describing to me right now is how I feel about the Leaf price tickets right now.
I
That's
can't blame
essentially
you.
what it is.
I've looked.
Like
Um,
my wife, we were together for like a year and a half at this point, and she knew how hockey crazy it was. And like I love hockey. I kind of fell off because I was working a night shift and just never had the opportunity to watch for 5 years. But back then I was hockey crazy, still playing, and she got me tickets for my birthday to a Leafs Sharks game. Now, this is also back in 2014 when the Leafs were doggy doo. They lost to the Sharks 2-0 that game,
the
but
Sharks are good.
they were good back then.
Yeah.
And I think they were on the back end of a back-to-back as well or something like that because they had just played against Ottawa and Montreal doing that whole sweep.
Okay.
Like, and yeah, the Leafs lost 2-0. It was still a lot of fun to have a lot of fun being the true atmosphere at the now Scotiabank Center or
Yeah.
arena, but back then the ACC, you had to be in the nosebleeds because that's where the real fans are, who are going to that one game every couple of years because that's what they can afford. Because
Yeah.
not a lot of people can afford that. Now, we could afford it because we were living at home
Fair
and
enough.
we were making decent money back then, but we were living at home with zero expenses. You think I can afford that as a homeowner? Not a chance.
No.
And I'm
No.
talking like these are nosebleeds, so like slightly obstructed view, still $100 a ticket on a Tuesday night against San Jose.
That's a lot. I know when Guy, Dave, and I were in Toronto before we came up to visit you and Dan, we looked at going to a game, and it actually would have been cheaper for us to hop in one of our cars, drive to Buffalo, and
Oh yeah.
watch the Sabres play the Oilers.
Yep.
But we ended up not doing it. But still, it was just ridiculous. Guy went and saw the Bruins game before we got up there when he was there on business. Um, and his ticket was like 90 some bucks, maybe a little bit more, and he was nosebleeds, you know?
Yeah.
But moving on from the stupid ticket talk, stupid prices, I
Yeah.
got one last thing to talk about before we wrap this show up. So, specifically Winnipeg and what they're going to do to add to their team, bolster those lines, you know, what can they do to help push for a cup this year? Who can they add?
That is a scary notion, considering they're up 3-0 on Carolina right now. That's a scary notion that they're looking to add because they have a very strong team. They're obviously looking to add to their depth. Who do you think they're going to add? Like
I want to
what?
say they're up 3-0 and they're missing their second line center.
And for some of our viewers who aren't so well versed in the Jets roster,
Adam Lowry.
Adam Lowry.
So, in my opinion, Adam Lowry is a good second line center, but an absolutely elite third line center. So if they add a true second line center and they have a 1-2-3 punch of Scheifele, player that they add than Lowry, that's going to be something because their winger depth is already so good. On the left they have Connor, Ehlers, Niederreiter, Iafallo. On the right, Velarde, Perfetti, Appleton, Ford. So just very good winger depth. So they add down the middle, get a rental. They could be looking at a Brock Nelson.
I was just going to say, you think they're going to attack Brock Nelson there?
It would be possible.
That would be pretty insane to see Brock Nelson on the Winnipeg Jets. Like, you think they're challenging for the Stanley Cup Finals out of the West if that happens. Now, Brock Nelson isn't a defensive stud, but they have a lot of players that already can. Like, do you think in that case maybe Lowry and Brock Nelson are trading off a little bit? Lowry's a little bit better defensively.
Yeah, so if you get your matchup, you put Lowry. Who has that advantage for the game. But I think he'd be the best fit. If you look at the other centers that are potentially available.
Oh, we lost you.
There
you are. Welcome back.
Are we good?
Yes, I think so.
One sec. I can see that I'm back up on that screen. A little bit of technical difficulties, folks. Let's see what I can do here. Close that. There we go. Maybe not. I'm going to kick myself out. I will be back. Dave can continue chatting.
So, now that it's just us alone here, what can we do to buy your loyalty here? We are really hoping that we can get some comments from you.
There we go.
Some shares, some subscribes. But what can we do on this podcast to engage you guys better? We would love to see your comments on any of our topics, suggestions, anything like that. Now that Andrew's back, I'm glad we had this chat. And back to the topic at hand. The Winnipeg Jets shopping. Brock Nelson, potential big fit. Who else is out there?
I've heard Casey Middlestat. So it would be a bit of a different trade. He's not exactly a rental. He has 2 years remaining with a $5.75 million contract. So I'm actually just pulling up the Jets on Puckpedia now. So I'm curious about their cap situation.
So in a situation like that, Colorado's expecting a player to come back the other way.
Let me finish.
Okay.
So for that to work, it would be a three-way trade of some sort.
Three-way trade.
Because they're not happy with Middlestat. They don't feel he's producing to the level that he should be. So they are looking to shop him and get someone else. But yes, they would obviously need someone else back to replace that hole. I don't think it fits as well as Brock Nelson. Because the Islanders are all but out. Lou Lamoriello is going to have to make that call to be a true seller. But the Jets have the space. They have $5.5 million cap space. Nelson's contracted $6 million, so a little bit of retention, and they're fine. And he's a UFA at the end of the year, so it would be no harm to the Islanders. Middlestat, they need to. It wouldn't quite work, They have $5.5 million. His AAV's 5.75. They might need to move a little bit of stuff around, so it's not quite as nice of a fit.
Retention to the Blackhawks. Now, one thing about Middlestat, he came from the Buffalo Sabres. I think of all the blunders that they've had getting rid of their top end talent, for example, it's known that they have a lot of players that have recently won Stanley Cups that have come off of that team. trade off too early. Middlestat is one of those that I can agree that they didn't move off too early. I think they made a strong move there.
I think they made a move with a team who was in a similar situation with Bowen Byram, and now they're both on the block again, so neither team really got what they wanted. Byram hasn't turned into that stud defenseman that Buffalo wanted, and Middlestat hasn't turned into that second line center that Colorado wanted. So it's a fair trade in the sense that everyone lost. Everyone got the value that they traded away, but no one's really happy with what they got.
No, my point is they didn't ship him off to a team that's going to win a cup like they did with Evan Rodriguez. Like shipping off players too early who have gone on to win cups. And like Ryan O'Reilly or Evan Rodriguez was a Buffalo Sabres, or Sam Reinhart that they managed to somehow swing and a miss on. Like how do you miss out on that after draft?
Yeah,
Like,
Reinhardt is probably one of the smartest players in the NHL, in my opinion.
yep.
No,
But
his IQ is just off the charts, and him and Barkov on the same team is scary as hell.
yeah, but that's what I mean. So in that sense, I wasn't talking necessarily about the trade itself. I was saying he's a forward that they've moved off of that hasn't won a cup and might not.
Okay.
So he wasn't doing well in Buffalo. They needed to move him because to give him a fresh start, and they're maybe not happy with who they got back, but it didn't impact their team in the long run at all. Getting rid of
Okay.
him. That's
Um, Speaking of Buffalo, this would be a
yes.
real dark horse, and it would have to be a bigger trade. But Dylan Cousins, he's on the block, and it would be a gamble and a half. But if it worked out and he started producing at a good pace again, it would be an absolute home run. I just don't think they gamble like that.
He's been part of rumors for months now.
He has been, just like Miller was.
Yeah, I feel like they would have made that trade by now if they're going to. I mean, there's still a lot of time, but I
Oh yeah,
mean,
they'll wait right till the last minute. Teams want to make sure they can A, get the most for the player they're trading, and B, they'll wait to see if they can get a better deal. If I offer you, we'll play a game here, a first for who's a player that Toronto would trade right now?
hmm? Like
I'm not
for
sure if you guys would actually trade anyone, just the way things are, 'cause you guys are doing good.
a couple players that
Okay, we'll
you'd
create a
shop would
scenario
be
here.
Max
So
Domi would be one that I'd take offers on.
let's say Bobby McMahon, not that they're going to trade Bobby McMahon, but I want him for okay prospect in a second, and you think you can get a first, and I leave that offer up right until the last minute. You don't get anything else. You circle back around. Some teams do that. They
Mhm.
don't want to pay anymore. They're stubborn and they wait. Sometimes they get the deal, sometimes they don't, and it works both ways.
But you're missing a key factor. Quote unquote, the answer is in this room.
Yeah, that's not a thing anymore. The answer is not in this room. The answer would be in the room blowing up for
Yeah,
Buffalo.
everybody. So
But I,
here's one little crazy stat. I know a lot of people have, like, this is a little bit off topic, so I apologize. But considering Buffalo in the way they are right now, Alex Tuck is a plus 14.
Tuck has been a good piece that came back in that Jack Eichel trade. I like his play, but I don't see them trading Alex Tuck.
No, no. It would have to be a pretty deep offer for him right now.
I
But
look at some of these players, and like I look at Alex Tuck, his pitcher. He's 28. He doesn't look 2 years older than me. He looks like 5 to 10.
Are you saying that he looks like he could tuck you into bed?
That's a really weird way to put it. And yeah, we're gonna move past that. But getting back on topic, Alex Tuck is having a good season, 37 points in 52 games on a shitty Buffalo team. It's good.
Yeah, he's a shining star there. He looks, yeah, in honesty, he looks like a groomed Stonehenge man. Easter Island head. He looks like a guy who's going to eat you alive.
Yeah, kind of.
So, but yeah, he's not being moved.
No,
But
unless they go in full rebuild again.
again,
But
yeah,
outside of that, I think if anything, Winnipeg goes for Brock Nelson. They make a push there. But we will see in time. The trade deadline is coming up, and I can't wait. We may do a live stream on that day, folks. So keep an eye out.
possibly yes. Here's and yes, I've mentioned his name a couple times in recent podcasts. Could you imagine that Winnipeg Jets team with Ryan O'Reilly?
O'Reilly would be a good piece to pick up too.
Like, imagine that 1-2-3 and the defensive capability that they have with a goaltender who is possibly one of the greatest current, like at this stage of his career, one of the greatest American goalies of all time. Having that kind of season right now, having that center depth and two strong two-way forwards, you're adding more to their already strong penalty kill. A guy who could play power play minutes, like it. I think Ryan O'Reilly is going to be a big piece at this trade deadline.
It depends if Trotz will admit that he needs to trade off some people, or if he's just going to wait. It's a big thing.
And not trading him like he's got a no trade clause.
Well,
I love that quote. I love that quote.
Yeah.
It's
O'Reilly doesn't have any protection, so he could be traded, but
it's as easy as pulling the trigger. There's not much you can do other than just say I'm not reporting. So
yeah. I mean, he is a good old Canadian boy, so I'm sure he'd be happy in Winnipeg.
now,
a little bit
yeah,
north of where he's used to, but that's okay.
a little bit less of the limelight, but still.
I mean, it'd be similar to Nashville. Nashville isn't exactly a hockey hub. The fans that are there are more dedicated.
I was going to say,
mean, their attendance isn't great, but they do have some hardcore fans, that's for sure.
Housing's cheap.
Yeah, I still wouldn't want to live in Winnipeg. But on that note, everyone, we will be back most likely Thursday, so you'll see the episode Friday. And we'll hopefully have some more hockey news to discuss, some more trades, something fun like that.
Some hot takes. What those hot takes are, stay tuned to find out.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss.
And just for a reminder, which platforms are we on again?
We are on X or Twitter, whatever you choose to call it, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music.
There you go. With plenty of different channels to tune into our fun podcast. Let's do it, guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Let's do it.